You can support the creation of these videos by supporting me at patreon.com/John D. Ruddy. I was there, man, when it all started. Following the hype, collecting all the merch, and getting Pokemon Blue for Christmas, and indeed, catching them all. I'm here to help you build your own Pokedex. What do I mean by that? We are going to draw every single Pokemon. Yes, there's over 1,000 of them now. We're going to do it. Not only will you learn to draw Pokemon, but you'll also learn loads of great skills for drawing cartoons and drawing people that you can bring into your own illustrations. You can start your collection with a ring binder and some Polly Pockets, or if you just want to draw, you'll need simple printer paper, a pencil, I prefer a HB or 2H because we're going to be rubbing these lines out later, an eraser, and some sort of pen or a fine tip liner, and indeed some colourful markers for the end product. Come along and join as we try to draw them all. Hi folks, so today we are going to be drawing tiny little Charmander here. Well, maybe not this one specifically. We'll give him a bit of a better pose. So, before we begin our main pieces, we're just going to do some quick draws first. Just, if you don't want to do the big long one, that's fine. But let's draw a quick Charmander. So, for Charmander, his head, nice big kind of round head like this, with a little shape like that underneath. And he's got one eye here and one eye here. So it's flat along the bottom and round at the top. And then his pupil, he's got big adorable pupils. So you can draw a little circle in the top of each, and then you can color in the rest. Because then that creates your, see, it's adorable. You give him some little, because he's cute, but he's also fierce. And a bit like Bulbasaur, he's got a little point in the mouth. And you can give him a couple little fangs too. And classic pose for Charmander, he got his hands up. And some of these Pokemon hands are really easy. It's just 2 wee fingers and a wee thumb. Simple. And then his body, with a big circle on it. And that circle kind of goes down to the bottom. And then one leg. I can actually do it like this. 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2, 3. And his tail like that, and a fire coming like that. That's simple Charmander. Now, simple Charmeleon. So Charmeleon, we'll start with his head. So his head, he's got that horn on the top. We're gonna have him with his head to the side. He's going to look very mean. Looks a little bit like Scyther there as well. He's got his neck. He's got 2 shoulders. He's got his 2 arms. And now Charmeleon's arms are quite easy to draw because his claws just stick out of them like that. So they're just wee roundy bottoms. And now his body, similar way to what we did for Charmander. And similar way, that second circle you can do there. And his legs are like this. Now his bottom legs, his bottom legs, doesn't have top legs. Like that. And you know, we give him a little fang there as well. And likewise, the tail hidden slightly hidden behind. And oof, give him some fire. Boom. Simple Charmeleon. And now, simple Charizard. Now, I mean, again, I say simple. So, we're going to start with the head. So Charizard, we're going to start with his mouth. And there's nostrils, so that's the weird kind of shape for the top of his mouth. Yeah. And his mouth's going to be open like that. And rawr, like that. And his eyes are going to be here. So you still have that little white glint. Rawr. There we go. Now his head, we'll give him a little shape around there. Now he has two horns coming out of his head. And now his neck comes down like that, so his neck pops up. And just like Charmeleon, he's got his little popped shoulders. Except this one, we can have his hands coming up like that. And 1, 2, 3, it's like a shamrock. You're like 1, 2, 3. You're like, what? So his claws will be pointed inwards, like that. And finally, well, not finally, yeah, he's got a big belly, but again, similar to Charmander. Charmeleon. Look at the legs. And big tail. And then of course, the bit that makes him really cool, his wings. So watch this. It goes up like this. I'll do the same on the other side. And then a spike at the top, spike at the top. And then it goes down, and it goes down. Helps when you're kind of doing them the same step on either side. Then you just follow that line back around, see? Follow that line back around. And then you can draw a little line down here. It'll be easier to see here, so what do you see? So it goes up and down, and tucks in behind his back there. So likewise, up and down, but of course, part of it's blocked by the fire. Up, and do you know what? Yeah, down, and bring it right in there. So, there's our simple Charizard. They're the quick ones. So, you want to do the longer one? But before we begin, I would just like to start off with just a little housekeeping tip. Now, for those of you who watched the first episode, for those of you who didn't, go back and watch it. But for those of you who did, you remember how we traced over Bulbasaur. Rather than doing that, though, what I propose we do, so that we're not constantly having to drag poor Bulbasaur in and out of the folder every single time, is we create our own template. So let's just say, do you know what? I'm just going to write Bulbasaur here. And you know what, actually I might do as well, just so that we're all on the same level. I might even just draw a bit of a line here, give us a little bit of an idea of how big our character is going to be. So I was just using Bulbasaur as an example. But what I can do here now is I can use this as my template from now on, so I don't have to constantly take out Bulbasaur. Charmander. Boom! And indeed we'll be drawing his. Now, in pencil, we just take a little note of that little line there. Right, and we take our template out. And we don't need it now, so we can put it away. Well, not put it away, but away enough. Okay, so Charmander. So I'm going to give Charmander a bit of a fun pose, rather than just, you know, him standing up straight. Let's have a wee quick look at what I drew all those many, many years ago. Yeah, okay. So, what can we learn from this? So see the way his head is like a lot bigger and his wee legs look tiny. So we can improve that. Also, you can see I made a mistake, but because I started straight in with pen, that line there was a little bit stuck there. Also, other pro tip, you may have noticed this. There's a little bit of pressing off against this. The color leaked across. That's because I used crayons here, and crayons are great, don't get me wrong, I love crayons, but when you press down on them from another page, they can ruin your picture. So if you are gonna use crayons like this in a copybook where there's picture of a crayon, get a blank sheet and put it in between. Yeah, exactly. So let's go. Right, so with Charmander, I'm going to start off with his head. And it's kind of an oval shape, but the bottom half of it just has a little kind of dink out for where his mouth is. And so he's going to be like, it's like he's running forward. It's like he's using Skull Bash. Well, Skull Bash is more of a, what's his name? More of a Squirtle thing, but still. Anyway, so his body, no, we don't need to draw the rest, but yeah. So his body's there, simple as, and one of his legs is coming out here, and his wee foot is coming out here, and his other leg is coming out here. Now it's actually going to be hidden behind this body, but still we draw this so we get a nice good round thing. And then his foot, because we're seeing it at an angle, and then he's got 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Now Charmander in a lot of ways is a much easier draw than Bulbasaur. So if you manage Bulbasaur, you should be fine with Charmander. Now let's see. We can add his belly, his yellow belly. Not that that has anything to do with his bravery. Let's see, and his arms. His arms coming up like this. One arm is coming up like this, and the other arm is actually coming out here behind his head. But you see, I'm just drawing a little guideline just so the arm's not like coming out of here, you know, and then it looks weird kind of once you actually see it all together. So that's why, you know, you draw that little guideline so you see it is coming out of his shoulder where it should be coming out of. And then his tail. So his tail again coming out of his body. Nice flow. Again, you know, I have those lines there from our template, you know, like they're guidelines. They're more like guidelines as opposed to rules. Okay, and then the yellow part of his tail, right there. Okay, and now the flame on his tail. So the trick with drawing flame is wild. Fire is wild. So don't think about it too much. Just now again, this is from years of practice. So you might be sitting there going, "Oh, this is so good," but just let the pencil go. Don't think about it too much. And likewise with that second little line, although we'll be rubbing that one out. Okay, so I'm just gonna rub this line out a little bit so that we have a slightly clearer face. Okay. And like with what we did with Bulbasaur, we're actually going to start with the top of the mouth. Like that. And we'll come down here. Like that. I'll give him a little two little nostrils. Yeah, the starter Pokemon in the first generation, all three of them have a very kind of similar vibe in how they're designed, which I think is a good idea. You know, like when we were all starting, you know, we were all kind of like, which one do we pick? Well, I wasn't, because I was like, fire! Give me fire! So his eyes. So the way that we get now, so his eyes are going to come up kind of about this far, but we can start with the bottom of his eyes, both his eyes, and it's kind of nice and kind of curved wee line like that. Then the top of his eyes go up and they curve and they come back down like that. There's a tiniest bit of a point up here, but barely. That's why I'm barely mentioning it, because I don't want you sitting there going, alright, there needs to be a point. It's the tiniest bit of a point. And give him a wee bit of a... And his eyes, so he has very different pupils to Bulbasaur. His pupils are massive, and they're also really cute. He's got that big white spot, which is just the reflection, and this is the bottom part of his pupil here. So it's kind of like a moon on its side. But that'll make more sense when we're coloring it in. And then his hands, thankfully his hands are super simple. There's a lot of Pokemon who tend to use hands like this, so just two wee triangles and a little thumb. And like, that's a really handy thing if ever you're making up your own wee characters and stuff. It just shows you can do very simple things, because hands are tricky, hands are tough, and we will get two hands. Two hands. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to make his body a little bit smaller. And again, this is why we do our guidelines now. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. Yeah, that works. Okay. Now we're going to do our lines, our hard lines. So now his toes, you do the toes on first, and they're mainly little triangles, but just a slightly rounded edge to them, and they're quite long as well. See, you just give a little curve to, and then a little line round for the belly, and then this goes round. I always get so quiet. I always get so quiet, because it's like, John, don't make a mistake. These ones you can't take back as easily, but that's okay. There's always another piece of paper if I go too badly. Okay, now his other leg. So watch this. I don't actually complete the line that way, because that actually goes into his foot. It'll just show you. So again, now there's a slight overlap in these toes, so you can see there. Alright. And his arm. Charmander! Yeah, I could do a much better Charmander impression before my voice had broken. Before my voice got a lot deeper. Charmander! Yeah, no, that's as high as I can go right now. Whereas I can still do Charmeleon a little bit better. That wasn't great though. Yeah, feel free to cringe. Okay, and see, this is where doing your pencil, these big lovely curves like this is where doing your pencil lines first really pay off, because it just allows you to get that real kind of that smoothness to it. And you can see where it should go. Namely, slightly a little bit further up there. I should have kept going. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. There we go. Now I'll do his wee mouth. Yeah, so again, he has just that little slight dip. And Squirtle's got a similar mouth. All three of them actually have quite similar mouths. Okay. And just tiny little nostrils. Yeah. That's also what makes Charmander really cute, is that his pupils take up most of his eye. You know, because it reminds us of babies. You know, that's why, you know, if something's got really big eyes. Now, this looks weird with the lines drawn, but once we actually put the colour in, it makes a lot more sense. But yeah. And it's so funny because it's this really fine balance between looking really cute and looking really creepy. Because it's like if you've got someone's eyes that take up almost their entire eye, but it doesn't, then they look really cute. However, if then the pupil takes up the entire eye and you can't see any of the white, sometimes that can look really creepy. So you'll notice I didn't draw any lines around the flame, and that's because we're actually not going to do any. Generally, you know, in a lot of the official artwork of now, if you want to, you can. You know, there's no problem with it. But in the official artwork of Pokemon, generally they don't do any lines around the flame, and that allows that flame to look more wild and free, and you know, it's not solid. You know, because fire isn't solid. You know, you can stick your hand through fire, although I wouldn't advise it. But yeah, so what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to very lightly, very lightly, just leave it, you can barely see it. And see as well, like the line doesn't connect there because the flame's going to go there. Okay, so colors. Let's go. Which one will we go with first? I think we will get our nice orange up and running. So, which orange will be nice? I have a couple of nice. Now again, I'm using these fancy markers. Do not worry about using fancy markers. You do not have to use fancy markers. You can get whatever markers you want. Yeah, that's quite a nice one. I think actually, do you know what? Classic bright orange will do the job here because it is strong. Ooh, I like that. Let's go for pumpkin. Okay. Right, here we go. So, and you'll notice as well, so with this, with Bulbasaur, we had highlights and shade and also shading, whereas with Charmander, we're only really having shadow. And a big part of that is, so the highlights allow Bulbasaur, Ivysaur and Venusaur to look a little bit slimy, you know, not necessarily in a gross way, but you know, just it suggests moisture, you know, that there's a reflection coming off their skin, whereas with Charmander it'd be a bit drier. Although salamanders. Ooh, whoops. In which Charmander partially gets his name. It's from char, as in like char grilled, you know, just fire char, and salamander, which is it's an amphibian. It looks like a lizard, but it is an amphibian, and they can grow quite big, actually, as far as I know. See, even I make mistakes, but we'll survive. But yeah, no, the salamander. There's an old legend that the salamander actually emerged from the fire, and so salamanders have often been associated with fire in certain cultures. So I think that's why Charmander got the name. Oh, it's interesting too. Now I don't know the Japanese names for them, but like there's a lot of Pokemon that have different names in Japan, which is quite interesting. Some of them they didn't change, namely Pikachu. You know, Pikachu is very much a Japanese name. We'll get to drawing Pikachu. I'd say the next episode we'll do Squirtle and his gang, not the Squirtle Squad, his evolutions, and then after that we'll jump to Pikachu, because everybody wants to draw Pikachu. Who doesn't want to? And Pikachu's surprisingly tricky to draw. Just in trying to get him to look. It's like with Charmander, he's got a very clear body and a very clear head. Whereas with Pikachu, it's not like that. You know, like there's less of a distinction between his head and his body, which makes it a little bit tricky. And you know what we'll do while we're up here now at the tip of the tail? Just going to use a nice gold. So it's almost more of an orange. It's very orangey yellow for the bottom half of the flame. And this is where practice comes in too, you know, because obviously now I'm doing this barely without guidelines. But, you know. Do you know what? I think I'll go with this, but then I'll do an orange on top of it. Because on its own, this red's a little bit weak. It's a bit pale. It's kind of leaning towards pink. But I think as a basis for our flame, it should actually, yeah, if I take some orange now and go over this, yeah, like that's fine. This one's a really old one. If you look closely, you can see kind of some of my different markers. You know, they have different. They're all the same brand, but they're all just from different years. And this, I think, is one of the oldest ones. And it still kind of works. It has one tape on it, although I should probably have two tapes on it at this stage. But yeah, so there's your flame. And do you know what I might do? I might just little extra. Cool, that's good. Now I'm going to do the yellow of his belly. So I'm going to show you a slightly different technique now than what I showed you with Bulbasaur and the gang. Now this is a slightly lazier way to shade, but I think the color scheme of Charmander works for this. So I'm actually just going to use a grey, but it's a warm grey, and that warm grey I think really works with Charmander. So, and the nice thing about the grey is that it still holds on to a lot of the colors underneath. I need a new one of these markers too. And this is the really handy thing about it, is that you can continue your shading from one color onto the other, and it works. I'm thinking something very controversial. I'm thinking that this shade of yellow is perfect for Charizard, and I don't think I like it as much for Charmander. So, because I will be adding on a second color, it's not the end of the world. But here we go. Yeah, no, that's a much better color for Charizard. This color is better for Charmander. Ah, look at that. There he is. There is Charmander. Right. And you're able to do this, thankfully, because I started off with a brighter shade. Yeah, this is far better. And the shading that I've put on will still come through, so I don't need to redo the shading, which is nifty. There we go. Beautiful. That's much better. Okay, now his mouth. Because I want his... Yeah, there we go. That's good. Because I want his mouth still in shade. There we go. Beautiful. And finally, I think I'm starting to call this one Old Reliable. Slate. Just works. It's got a wee hint of purple in it. And then for Charmander's eyes, so the colored bit of his eyes. Last one is black. Now black, because we always tend to use there's certain markers will always run out before others, and black is one of those ones that tends to run out. You guys tend to notice when black runs out too, because it just doesn't look as good. Okay. And that's pretty much... That's Charmander! Boom! There he is. Charmander! Class. Now, Charmeleon. Let's get him done. I always kind of liked Charmeleon. Like the way he looked. Charmeleon. So we've got our template underneath. So we'll just start off with his name. Now, so Charmeleon. I enjoy Charmeleon because he's a little bit like a kind of a velociraptor in some ways. So we can start with his head. So his head is, or at a very basic form, is kind of like an upside down egg. That's how we're starting it anyway. At an angle. And then his body is... yeah. And his body, he's got his wee neck like that. And then his body can kind of come down. He's quite similar to Charizard. You know, you'll notice that when we draw Charizard, they're built very, very similarly. Now, his this is a big difference now between him and Charmander, is the limbs. So he's got big old shoulders with attitude. Not as big as Mewtwo's, but he's got shoulders, and he's got elbows, and he's got arms. So he's got a little thumb, so it's like a little triangle but with a roundy side. And then the other two, one of them is underneath because it's like his thumb, and the other two are underneath. And so we can draw that like that. But yeah, the hand itself is very simple. You know, it's not even like a proper hand. His leg, similar to Charmander's in that way, where you start by drawing the top bit, that's it going down to his knee, and then his foot is coming down from here. Now here as well we can see. So the way that most animals are built, or at least two-legged animals, us being one of them. Well, actually, us being one of them, we're kind of one of the exceptions. Most two-legged animals walk just on the tops of their feet, not on their tippy toes, but on what we call the balls of your feet. So rather than having your heel down, like this up here, that's its heel. And you can see that on four-legged animals as well. That they do have a heel. But they just don't use it the same way as we do. And you know what? He's got a bit of his belly kind of sinks a wee bit lower like that too. And he's got his yellow patch. Then his other arm, he's up. Ends up here. He's just kind of, it's a challenge. He's given attitude. He's got 1, 2, 3 little fingers, because he's actually spitting a bit of fire. And now the tail, so watch this. So the tail will continue from the bottom here. So so it's not going to start up here, it's not going to start down. It has to make sense that the tail sweeps up from seemingly where the back of the back is. The bottom, shall we say. And it being Charmeleon, he's got a bigger flame. So again, flames are wild. So don't think about the shape of the flame too much. So that's a simple thing. But now his head. So this is a different head to what we've been drawing so far in the series. That neck might be a little bit too long. That's okay. Just bring his head down a little bit. So the back of his head, he's got like a big kind of weird angular back of his head, like this. Tell you what, if we even draw like a circle first, so we get an idea of the back part of his head. And so one eye is here, and then the other eye, we actually don't see the other eye because it's tucked in behind there. He has a wee bit of a point to the tip of his nose, but he has his two wee nostrils. And boy, does he have attitude. And what we have as well, just a little, what's this, little V here, just from him blowing out the fire. And his eyes, as angry and as full of attitude as he is, he still has those little Charmander eyes. Just not big round ones anymore, they've got a lot of attitude. But, and angry. And then at the back of his head, the signature single spike, of course, with Charizard, that becomes double spike, double horns. Let's see how do they draw Charmeleon. That's not too bad. Yeah, you can tidy it up. You can tidy it up. Now, we'll do our lines. So, where will we start? We start with a hand here. Again, we often try and start from where it's furthest out in front, and there's nothing in front of that hand. And now watch this shape of this hand. There's a slight kind of bulge at the top of this hand there. You know, it's not just perfectly round. And so see, it kind of comes down and it just bulges a little tiny bit. Little tiny bit. And then now, where do you see this too? His eyes have a touch of the anime eye to them, so they're not totally closed. Like the lines aren't totally closed around it. So we're actually going to leave them open a little bit. Now, we'll start off with the color we're going to start off with. You might be a little bit surprised by. It's actually a blush. It's almost like a pink. But that's because this dude is going to have some highlights. Again, highlights, you know, they just make your character jump out. And again, you don't have to do this either. This is like a whole extra step. If you want, you can just color them in a more simple fashion. I'm really tempted to use pastel pink. Or not pastel, antique pink. Yeah, even like he's a red, but yeah, and it's once it gets the shading, this color will actually make perfect sense. I mean, it already does. I like it. I was always so frustrated in the show when. I think that was the moment where I gave up on the anime, was when Ash gave away Charizard. So I was like, nope, that doesn't make any sense. You know, why would you give away your best Pokemon? And in fairness, I get how, like in the show, they were like, well, like, I mean, if Ash holds on to Charizard, he'll just win every single fight. So it's like, they have to nerf Ash. So, and also, we want to introduce loads of new Pokemon as well, and have Ash actually use them rather than just go, Charizard, use Fire Blast. Charizard, use Seismic Toss again. But still, one of my favorite episodes was the one where Charizard fights Magmar on Cinnabar Island. Great moment. And oh my god, the anime like made Magmar look like one of the most dreaded Pokemon, and then you actually meet one in the game and you're like, alright, okay, it's fine. It's fine. It's like, I used Fire Blast. It's like, alright, cool, yeah, that's Magmar. That's what he does. Alright, okay, so there's that. And there's eye while we're at it. Okay. So for the shading on Charmeleon though, because I want to make the warmth pop on him, so I'm actually going to use an orange, I think. Yeah, I'll just give it an extra warmth to it, rather than if I use a grey, it'll just cool them down even more. Whereas this, because again, it's interacting with the ink underneath, so it'll add to that pink. But this will just give it that extra heat that it needs. You know, there's some characters, you know, it's fine having them look kind of pale and cold, but not Charmeleon. Charmeleon needs to. But no, that shade of pink, it's perfect for him, but it's cool. I just need something warm. But the thing about using this orange is I can't use it on his belly, because then it'll look straight up like orange, whereas it doesn't really look as much like orange when using it here underneath the pink. Once again, the shadow allows us to continue telling the viewer the shape of this creature. Now, so when we're drawing flames as well, generally speaking, so we know our yellows and our oranges, and it's funny, people tend to throw red into fire. Red doesn't actually kind of factor into flames as much as you'd think, and I know I used a bit of red on that last one, but it was more of an orangey red. Yeah, it all kind of depends on heat, on kind of what temperature it all is. So like the really hot parts of the fire will be white, and then yellow, and then orange, and then you can even start kind of bringing in your darker oranges, and you're burning it all up. Yeah, and again, you know, find the flow of your flame. You know, it just sprouts up. There's no straight lines in fire. It's like plants. You know, I find straight lines in them. There's no perfection. If your flame looks too perfect, it's going to look weird. You know, unless it's like a Bunsen burner blue flame, which is a whole different set of physics. Okay, there's Charmeleon. Do you know what? I'm my own worst enemy. I am going to do one more layer on his. Yes, there we go. And that shading was 100% happy with that shading. I still need to do his nails as well. Sometimes when you use a lighter color, you don't know properly until. Oh, and I also need to do the shading on his belly. I was like, is that it? No, I knew it wasn't. But yeah, sometimes you don't know until it has dried. Ah, this is much better. This is much better. Much more dramatic. You know? And that is something that Charmeleon is dramatic. It's going to be tricky whenever I get drawn all the new ones because I won't know what they're like. You can tell me in the comments what they're like. And you'll notice this fun little cameo on the site. Well, you won't if it's not on the camera. This is Mario and Yoshi, a great little puzzle game on the Game Boy. And if anyone can tell me the link between Mario and Yoshi, that particular Game Boy game, and Pokemon, you will get a thumbs up from me in the comment section. Gonna just give a little bit. Now, I mean, I'm just being really pernickety here. If you want to, you can leave his toes white. It's fine, but I'm just giving them a little off-white and a little bit of shade. Okay, there we go. That's Charmeleon done now. Woohoo! And now, one of my favorites. Fairy died a little bit. Oh, Charizard. I love Charizard. Charizard is one of my favorite Pokemon. Oh, I remember when Pokemon cards came out, that first Charizard, that big Charizard card. Oh man, it was so cool. Oh, also, yeah, I probably won't do the I'll do like the Mega forms or the Gigantamax forms at some point as well. So, starting with Charizard, we'll actually start with his body. So he's going to be in flight, so he's got a nice big round body. Not a perfect circle, more of an oval. Slightly egg-shaped. It's at a bit of a weird angle. So this leg is popping out the back like that. This other leg is popping out the back like that. And his feet are popping out like this. So 1, 2, 3. Now we can give these a bit more, but this is just to get all of his bits and pieces in order first. So his stomach, his yellow belly, not that you would call a Charizard yellow belly to his face, and then his tail. Again, his tail's going to go behind the leg, but still, we do that line so that we get the flow. And look, he's got a big thick tail, so the tail actually starts above where his leg is, or in and around. Again, everybody's picture is going to be slightly different. You know, your picture is going to be different from my picture. You're going to be different from the next picture. Now, I'm going to draw this circle here. And you're like, what? It's like we've chopped his head off. But that's just so we see where his neck is in relation to his shoulders. So we're going to do 2 wee circles here. And his arms can come out here. Now, these aren't going to finish off as circles, but this is just so we can get them. So his hands can start off as triangles. And he's kind of got weird hands. Like here, this arm's kind of funny because it's coming close to us, whereas this hand, his elbow's bent, whereas his elbow's actually straight. But his hands are triangles. And what do I mean by that? Well, he's got 3 fingers on them, and so the base of them can be a triangle, because look at this now. So it's a bit like Mewtwo actually, except this dude's got nails. So we can do some circles on either end of the, and then we can add the nails, and then it all starts making sense. pointing, usually kind of pointing inwards, like that. And now for his head. Well, first his neck. We'll do his neck first. The neck will come up like this, just so we know where his head is. And so at the top, and his neck is actually, so this is the front now. So this is so we know where his head is attached to. And so now we can give, yeah, about that. So do a circle for the front of his head, but he's got his jaw open. So well, actually, you know what? Next, maybe a wee bit too long. Give him a bigger head. Yeah. Bring his jaw down like that. Gonna rub some lines out just to make that a little bit clearer for you. Okay. So that's the bottom of his mouth, and you can actually draw just another little kind of, it's like a rectangle, just so you can see roughly where it goes. And then the top of his mouth comes out over here. You can start with a rectangle like that for now. I do 1 dot, 2 dots for his 2 wee nostrils. And then his eyes, angry triangles, like that. Again, just to start off, because we're going to be giving him more detail. I love drawing dragons. Did he ever? No, he's still fire and flying. Even though he looks like the quintessential dragon of Pokemon, but he's still just... oh well. And also his flame over here. You've drawn the flame twice now, so you know how it is. It's the same as the other guys. And the bit that makes Charizard. So these are, if we imagine, these are like big arms. So it's like an extra little kind of arm going up. Now, I do have my problems with Charizard's wings, in that, and I'm not even going to go into the whole, 6-limb thing. That's a whole other issue. But they make no sense. Because if you imagine these wings are, actually no, they do kind of make sense. But yeah, if you imagine these wings are basically big hands, and this little bit here is a thumb, and this little bit here is a thumb. You look at a bat, and that's how its wings work. And so you draw one big finger there, and then another big long finger there. And then at the bottom, you can connect them with a little kind of bent line like that. Magic. But my big problem with Charizard's wings is that once you actually give it color, there's only color, there's only orange up along the top here, and all of this is colored in. It's fine. That's fine. I suppose I probably would have made it look a little bit too busy, perhaps. So this is Charizard. This is Charizard. I'm actually going to make his yellow belly a little bit bigger, like that. But yeah, no, this is a fun pose. And I can rub out that little line there so we can see him a little bit more clearly. Yeah, this looks cool. I like it. Now we can add a wee bit more detail here along the mouth. We can give him some teeth. You're generally able to see. Now see, watch this. Now we're gonna tidy up this top jaw a little bit. So we're gonna a couple little kind of bends. But watch this. He still has that little kink down between his 2 nostrils. He still has that little kind of V shape. But then it goes over each side. And on either side of that, he's got one tooth there and the other tooth there. Now this does take practice. This is a tricky pose, but give it a go. And that's another handy thing about the setup of what we're doing with our Pokédex in our in the binder, is if there's a picture that you don't like, if you're not happy with a picture, it doesn't have to go in the Pokédex. You can can do it again. You know, you can take it out, you can redo it. You know, so the pencil lines are getting very busy here, and I don't want to over pencil it either. So I'm actually going to add some of the details once we get going. But again, just out of curiosity, let's see how I did back in the day. Yeah. So again, so you see here the way like the tail. So the way the tail is like coming from up here, and it should follow the curve of his belly around. You know, although you know, like I get the main points, but that wee things like that. And even actually, it should follow the curve of the back and the curve of the belly. So it's because it's all one unit, you know, and you can see that here. You know, it follows that curve. Because even though they're made up characters, they still make some anatomical sense. Except these wings. Anyway, speaking of anatomical sense, wait till we get to some of the other Pokemon. Magnemite, anyone? Anyway, let's go. Let's start adding some lines here. So we're gonna start off with his eye, and his eye is just kind of terrifying. And just so he's lost. He still has the white reflection, but he's lost the cutesiness of it. There's an element of it, but it's not really there. So here we've got a big angry eyebrow, and now I'm actually going to do his snout here. It's got that little kink. And his nostril. I'm just going to bring his nostril over a little bit. And his nostrils actually are just two wee lines as opposed to the dots. Did the dots so they were just a bit clearer. And here we can see the side of that other, but barely. And there's like little lines on it just to show its shape, to show how it all works. And again, so this circle is not going to be a circle. It's just going to be a kink of the shoulder. And again, like a lot of this kind of physiology you can apply to drawing dragons too, even though he's not a dragon type. Or even drawing dinosaurs as well. You know, if you can kind of draw this, you know, take away those wee horns and you can basically have a big cartoon T-Rex, and obviously take away the flaming tail and the wings, but you know what I mean. And like that's what's cool about these. Like I drew tons and tons of Pokemon when I was younger, and it really kind of helped train me in how to draw like a lot of these kind of cartoon figures, you know, by drawing them over and over again and just seeing how they're built and seeing how, you know, different tips and tricks how to draw simple characters. You know, what's really cool with Pokemon too is because there's such a different amount of character types, of like different animals and different things. You know, it can really open you up to, you know, whereas you mightn't be like, oh, I'm going to sit down and draw a flamingo today. But it's like, oh, well, what about that Pokemon that's basically a flamingo? And you can see as well, like it's not perfect. Like there's all sorts of little kind of kinks, because you know, you imagine, you know, there's like bones and things inside these, and you know, generally like when you're drawing kind of more realistic things, you would tend to actually start from a skeleton, you know, and start kind of drawing a skeleton. This wing should actually attach down here. And again, a line like that. A line like that. Cool. There is Charizard, my favorite Pokemon. Well, one of my favorites. Now, let's see. Be careful when rubbing out. Be careful that you don't scrunch your paper. I wonder when the first scrunch will be. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. But it's not when I'm going to be super conscious of it. It's when I've forgotten about it and I'm being complacent and I'm being a little bit too relaxed. I'm like, haha. And it's these corners up here too, you know, because you could just drag that whole corner down with you. Just be very careful. Okay, boom, that's cool. Ooh, and highlights. We'll start off with his highlights. Okay, so here we go. Alright, there we go. So, Charizard's big yellow belly. So his belly is more yellow. His eyes, though, he still has those blue eyes, those deep blue eyes. Yeah, this just, again, helps create the shape. Okay, and let's see here. And oh, the flame. Well, no, this one I'm actually going to do slightly differently. Rather than just doing the little bits of flame that I want, I'm actually going to do the whole flame, and then I'll add the bits. Wait a minute, what just happened? The flame is there, and also half of that wing is there. What happened? So the battery died. Battery died on my camera, and it didn't make a sound when it died because it was dead. So I went on and I finished this and I did this. Thankfully I didn't finish the whole thing and record a whole pile of other things after, because that would have killed me. But yeah, so you can just see what I did here. Welcome back. Yeah, so I did the whole flame first, but then I went over it with a little bit of orange. And then a little bit of red on top of that orange. But again, I know I was talking about kind of red not being as common in fire as you'd think. It's always more, it's an orangey red if anything. So adding that red, it combined with the orange, you know, while the ink was still a bit wet. And then for the wing, we did, oh, let me turn my lights on. My lights aren't on. You would have seen a difference there. There we go. Aha, there we go. It's looking more like what it looked like. There we go. Beautiful. So we are adding some marine to the wings. So yay, we're back on track. Yeah, generally I would want kind of warm grays for shading him, but for these I think I'm actually going to use a cool, oh, maybe an ice. Yeah, I'll just settle with ice gray 3, it's fine. not the best choice. And it's not the worst either. I have seen worse. We'll see when it dries. It might actually dry a little bit lighter. But if that's the case, it's fine because I'll actually go over it with a darker shade. At least then I'll know where all of my shading spots are. So a lot less thinking to do. What to do? Yeah, no, definitely darker shade. That was useless. Okay, that's good. That's better. And yeah, there we go. That looks like what I'm looking for. It's darker, but not too dark either, you know, because we still want the turquoise to come through that marine. Oh, I remember that wonderful rule that I was telling you. Oh, let me try to undo it. I'll say this to you, don't be mean to yourself. I'm being quite mean to myself right now. Don't be mean to yourself. Because we take what we say seriously. We take ourselves, you know, because we know what we say is what we think. Usually. So, don't be mean to yourself. Because you'll believe it. You know when you say mean things, you don't always believe it. Or you don't always mean it, is what I mean. And then finally, Ivory. For his claws. You're like, why do you even bother? You know, it just... But it just gives that... Rather than just having them these perfect white, you know, it makes them look that little bit more... real, although the teeth remain nice and white, just so they kind of pop, stand out a little bit more. And then finally, a little bit of shade. And there we have it, Charizard. Boom. I'm delighted with that. That looks really cool. It looks scary. But in a fun, family-friendly sort of way. Let's have a look at him with Charmeleon and Charmander. Sweet! So, next thing we do, we can put them in our Pokédex. Pokédex. And do. Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard. I need to get a better red pen. That one's rubbish. Nice. Sweet. There we go. So we can unclip that. And now, since we were here last, oh look, there's all of the Pokemon we have to draw. There's our Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, and now Charmander. Some ASMR for you as well, folks. Paper sliding. Charmeleon. And Charizard. Awesome. Sweet. Oh, this is looking cool already. Very cool. Nice. At a later date as well, either I'm going to get a new binder, or I'm going to show you, might even do an episode, how to make this look more like a Pokédex, which would be kind of cool. And that's us for today. We have now drawn Charmander, Charmeleon, and Charizard. We have drawn 6 Pokemon in our Pokemon of like over 1,000. So we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell icon to find out when the next video is. I aim to have these up once a week, so weekly drawing of Pokemon, and we can slowly but surely build up and add to our Pokédex, which is exciting. Although if you're discovering this at a later date, you've got a whole pile of Pokemon to catch up on, so woohoo! You can support this channel at patreon.com/John D. Ruddy. You support me as an artist, as an art educator, and as a history educator, as it also helps support Many Man Does History, another animated history series on my other channel. Next episode we will be doing... Oh, who's that Pokemon? It's Squirtle. It's Squirtle. Squirtle, Wartortle, and Blastoise. But as the weeks go on, well, we're not just going to be going up through them in, you know, numerical order. We'll be doing like Pikachu, we'll be doing some of the legendaries, we'll be doing loads, and not just first generation. And even though I'm an old fogey, and I'm like, yay, 151. Yeah, no, we will be doing more than just Gen 1 and Gen 2. And I'm really excited about that because most of those I have not drawn before. So I'm excited to give them a shot and see what they look like and see what they are. And that's going to be fun, and we can discover it together. And you can let me know in the comments. Also, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok, where I post daily history videos. And also, you can tag me if you have drawn your own pictures based on these. Then send them to me. You know, I'd love to see them. So, until next time, thanks for drawing.